But Moscow is not the headquarters of the international master conspiracy?
Heavens, no. The Kremlin is theoretically in charge of the communist arm. But let us emphasize once more how subordinate this arm is to the total design. The master conspiracy had been in existence for 2 generations and was already powerful and extensive enough to bring on the simultaneous revolutions of 1848 in many countries before the communist movement was even inaugurated.
So Karl Marx did not originate the conspiracy?
Far from it. Marx did not even originate its communist arm. In 1847, he was a young revolutionary intellectual who was hired by one group of the conspirators to codify the plans, methods, and purposes of their activities. This he did with such ruthless logic, although with almost no originality, that his party platform for the conspiracy, known as the Communist Manifesto, gave birth to the communist movement, and incidentally brought the word communism into the European languages with its present meaning. But Karl Marx himself was considered so unimportant as merely a midwife at this birth that his name did not even appear on the manifesto when it was first published in 1848, nor for 20 years thereafter. The glorification of Marx as a great sociological scientist and philosopher was an afterthought, to which the conspiracy began to give effect decades after the Communist Manifesto first appeared.
And this subordination of the communist movement to the service of the master conspiracy has continued ever since?
Most assuredly. Do not forget that when Lenin and Trotsky took over the Russian Revolution from Kerensky in 1917, they were financed and otherwise aided by their conspiratorial bosses in Germany and the United States, even though these 2 countries were at war with each other at the time. The conspirators, however, as always, were only at war with civilization. They were operating in unison for their own purposes on both sides of all lesser conflicts, as their predecessors had learned to do during the Napoleonic Wars 100 years before. Lenin was only a brilliant agent, and communism a growing agency of the insiders at the top of the conspiracy when they established Russia as a physical base for the use of this communist arm.
But if there is an inner circle at the summit which can select, support, and control its agents at all levels, why does it permit such rivalry as that which occurred between Trotsky and Stalin?
For the soundest reason in the world, from the point of view of the conspiracy, this policy permits and enables the most cunning, most cold-blooded, and most power-hungry members or agents of that conspiracy to rise into its highest echelons, and thus to add their strength and abilities to the top command. This is why, as we pointed out in the Blue Book a dozen years ago, there is found in the upper levels of the conspiracy the most ruthless competition that exists anywhere in the animal kingdom.
Well, where did Stalin stand in this picture?
He benefited enormously from the leeway for competition, of course, and so did the conspiracy from his driving ambition. For it is doubtful that Trotsky could even have kept the communists in control of Russia during those early years. By cunning, bluff, and terror, Stalin did so, and he was then able, in 1933, to prevent the utter financial collapse of the Soviet regime, as well as to accomplish many other most important objectives by obtaining the official recognition of his government by the United States.
But did Stalin remain merely a subordinate agent of some inner circle above him?
Not in the long run, at least not in our opinion. There have been many aspirants for raw power who have come up through the communist ranks to find themselves eventually within higher and higher, and hence smaller and smaller, concentric circles of the conspiratorial hierarchy. In the United States, Walter Reuther and Alger Hiss, before his exposure, did fairly well in that direction. Among dozens who could be named in other countries are Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Willy Brandt, and Pierre Elliott Trudeau. But Stalin is the outstanding example of success on that route.
Can you define the route?
Yes. First, by purges and assassinations, Stalin made himself the supreme commander of the communist arm of the conspiracy. Second, by unremitting guile, cruelty, and drive, he made that arm so powerful and so immensely useful to the master conspiracy that in time the arm became synonymous with the whole body for most people everywhere. And even we ourselves, for the sake of simplicity, when there is no real need for more precise language, may speak of what the communists are doing when we really mean the communists and the whole conspiratorial organization above them and around them.
So Stalin climbed very near to the top.
We think so, yes, and that his voice had become a very powerful one within the highest echelon before the end of his career. Yet it should still be noted that his death in 1953 caused no slightest change in the program or pause in the advance whereby the conspiracy was moving towards its goal.
In reality, what is that goal?
There is one question, anyway, to which the answer is sure and simple. It is to rule the world. For 6 generations, this self-perpetuating and ever-expanding clique of conspirators has been making steady progress towards the destruction of all religion, of all existing governments, and of all traditional human institutions. This was in order that they should be able to establish the new order of their civilization under their absolute and tyrannical rule on the ruins of the old one.
Who originated any such nightmarish dream as that?
Surprisingly enough, during the last half of the 18th century, it was quite commonplace, especially in France and Germany. All the tremendous intellectual ferment of the period, as sparked by Rousseau, Voltaire, King Frederick II of Prussia, the French encyclopedists, and many others, was busily brewing revolutionary concepts of this variety. But it was a man named Adam Weishaupt who, on May 1, 1776, organized a secret society called the Order of the Illuminati, which apparently, through mergers with or absorption of other similarly minded revolutionary groups, became the central and solid core of the lasting and growing conspiracy. And Weishaupt laid down for his followers in specific language the very plan which we outlined for you just a minute ago.
And you think that plan is still afoot today?
Most assuredly so, and without any basic change. In fact, since 1848, some communist leaders have, on several occasions, openly proclaimed this program. Such bragging was intended to give confidence and direction to the growing number of conspiratorial workers, but not to be taken seriously by the world at large.